بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم ألهمنا مراشد أمورنا وأعذنا من شرور أنفسنا. The narration is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed the salat of Fajr. He read in that salah Surah Rum. He got confused. After the salah he said, what is wrong with some people who have performed salah with us but they have not made a proper wuzu? Proper wuzu here refers to that the sunnah of wuzu, which we already explained, we all make it. But it just means that one extra thought, to be happy with how I'm making this wuzu. He said, what is wrong with some people? They perform salah with us, but they are not making a proper wuzu. إِنَّمَا يُلَبِّسُ عَلَيْنَا الْقُرْآنَ أُولَٰئِكَ. He says, these people are spoiling my Quran. They are confusing me in my Quran. What we mentioned is that this ummah has been blessed with something called hadas. Hadas means ilham, help from Almighty Allah. Under this narration, Mullah Ali Qari rahimullah mentions one point which we will now read, and then we will mention the point which we are trying to explain. Mullah Ali Qari rahimullah says that I want you to think about this, that if the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam could have been so affected by a musalli behind him whose wuzu was not perfect, he said, then what do you think about bil ghayri min suhbati ahlil bid'ah? He says, what do you think of the condition of a man who stands and around him are those people who forget their wuzu is not correct? Sometimes their belief is not correct. That was a very unique point. And on that he made his dua, a'adhan Allah. May Allah protect us from the company of wrong. وَرَزَقَنَا صُحْبَةَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Because if their company is good, then it allows that person himself to get ilham from Almighty Allah. And if that company is bad, he is not going to get inspiration. It says when the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, that help, and to explain this here, it's, think of Quran. Many of us will say that my hifz is pakka, strong. But no one's Quran is strong. It is وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ. So as an individual reads, because there's nothing there. Had it been that the Muslim's memory is strong, then that Muslim would memorize a lot of things. It is Quran is such that whenever he is reading a verse, there's a special ilham coming from Almighty Allah. And that ilham is taking him on to the next verse. Because that individual, the Hafiz, gets so much ilham of Quran, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ. After a time, he starts thinking that my Quran is strong. But if ever you have to be a ustad of hifz, and you see that young boy in front of you who just started learning, as he is reading, you also understand that he is getting to the next verse is nothing but Almighty Allah's inspiration. It's just coming. And then the next verse, and the next verse. And where he gets stuck, it is inspiration stopped. And then he's just saying, I'm confused. This is his. He goes on the musalla, he gets inspiration. When Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, what is wrong with these people? They are spoiling my Quran. It meant that because of them, that inspiration is being cut. Inspiration. So the point that I wanted to mention on this narration is all of us are desirous that in the times of darkness, our light must never go off. That our level of inspiration must never come to an end. The dua was, Allahumma waqiyatan kawaqiyatil walid. Allah, how a child is saved, will you look after me like that? The dua was, La takilni ila nafsi tarfat ain. For even a second, don't hand me over to myself. So all of that there was to say, let me always stay under inspiration. Now if someone behind's wuzu was not so well done, and it went right through and affected Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam,
So if the individual himself, his wuzu is not done well, or he has no wuzu, then he can't expect to be inspired. He can't expect it. So this narration is a very big targheeb to the people who are desiring that Allah's aid must always be with them. And it is that you always be with wuzu. You always be with a good wuzu, and ilham will continue coming. Inspiration will carry on coming. Last week we spoke about so much of honor is given to the man who has made wudu, that the angels continue making dua for him, even if he's just sitting and relaxing in the masjid. Just because of the wuzu, for them this is the most purest person in the world. Soon as that wuzu breaks, the angels stop immediately. He never do any guna, because breaking wuzu is not a sin. But because as soon as the wuzu broke, that satar went away. And his reality was normal again. This is a normal man. So much wuzu. May Allah Tabarak Ta'ala bless us with this, that shock of wuzu. That whenever the wuzu breaks, it's not a thing yet, when is the next salah? It is that when is the next inspiration? And for inspiration, it's an issue of wudu. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would find it hard to take the name of Almighty Allah without wudu. The narration, we all heard of it, we saw it, we read it. He came out from istinja, a sahabi radiallahu anhu made salam. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam never wanted to take Allah's name. He quickly went to a wall, he made tayammum. He said, I felt it difficult to take the name of Allah without purity. So much ihtimam. So what happens is, normally because we are in an environment of ilm, as soon as the first time comes where wuzu breaks and it becomes normal to touch a kitab, thereafter it becomes normal to continue. Until a time comes where a person, even with a Quran in front of him, one is he got a wuzu problem. And for him to continue making wuzu is difficult in class. One is it's now just laziness. So because the wuzu is broken, it's easier for him with a pencil and a pen to just turn pages of Quran. But because that wuzu, the only reason he's doing this is because that wuzu for him at the moment is not the most important thing. But if he had to understand that because of wuzu, ilham comes. And ilham and ilm is practically the same thing. That when that individual says, al-ilmu nurun, ilm is a light. It goes from heart to heart. This is this ilham. For that knowledge to go, it also needs, because knowledge is a sifat of Allah. So where the angels came towards the individual when he had wuzu, as soon as his wuzu finished, the angels pulled away from him. Ilm is a quality of Allah. When ilm sees a person with wudu, the reality of the individual is not known. So ilm does not find it hard to come closer and closer to him. And let the wuzu break. And like how me and you, when someone does not smell well, we automatically move back. So ilm is a sifat of Allah, it also pulls back. So the individual searching for the nur of ilm, he must make that effort that while I'm a student, how much wuzu I can have, how much. There were those mashayikh who went to the limits. They did not want to miss one hadith also. They did not want to hear one hadith without wuzu. They would not want to miss one hadith. They could not re-hear a hadith also without wuzu. So much they went to. So they normally explain that in Islam and in Tasawwuf, there's no limits. It starts from what is jaiz, and it carries on to what got no nihaya, no limit. What is jaiz is what we learn in fiqh. That it is jaiz to touch even the Quran with one's topi. But that was never meant as amal. Amal was that la nihaya. You will carry on walking better by every day. Until a time must come that, like Imam Malik rahimullah, forget wudu. Without that ghusl and without that jubba and without a lot of itar, he could not narrate even one hadith after that. It was too hard. If someone says, where will it end? The answer will be, La nihaya, because Allah got no intiha. So the sifat of Allah. But we never ever go this way. When we go sliding towards what is permissible, then that person doesn't start walking anything. So this is one. The second narration that we will mention, and then that's the end of this chapter. May Allah make it that when we start now the next, which will be Kitabus Salah, or just before Kitabus Salah, it must come in our heart so much at least, that my izzat is in wuzu. My izzat. Allah has honored me, Allah has covered me, Allah has protected me, Allah has made me the shining star. It is known as wudu, wada'a. It makes you shine. One is it makes you shine, it covers that others don't see your faults. One is wada'a. The promise was that one level higher and one sin wiped away. The promise was, as every drop falls, whatever sin was on that hand, that falls away. The promise was that as soon as you complete and you make a dua, the 8 doors of heavens open up for you. Hatta yakhruja naqiyyam min adh-dhunub. At the end of the wuzu, he is pure from every sin. So much of promises. So the final narration, which we will mention of this chapter, Kitabul Wudu, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam once mentioned when he was at the Qabristan, Assalamu alaikum dara qawmin mu'mineen wa inna insha'Allah bikum lahiqun. The dua that normally we will say the salam when we go to the graveyard. After that he said, Wadittu, how I desire if only I can see my friends. Anna qad ra'ayna ikhwan, my brothers. How I desire if only I can see my brothers. Meaning I want to see him. Sahaba radiallahu anhu then said, are we not your brothers, O Rasul of Allah? Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, you are my companions. Wa ikhwanuna alladhina lam ya'tu ba'du. My brothers are those who have as yet not come. I want you to remember that first part of the hadith. How I desire to see my brother. I want to see him. I want to see him. So they said, are we not yours? He said, you are my friends. My brothers will come after. Then they asked, كَيْفَ تَعْرِفُ مَنْ لَمْ يَأْتِ بَعْدُ. How will you recognize the one who as yet has not come from your ummah? In this narration it ended there. In another narration, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, I will be the first one who will be given the permission to make sajda on the day of Qiyamah. I will be the first one given permission to lift my head. As soon as I lift my head, I will look in front of me, and I will see my ummah in front of me. I will look behind me, I will see my ummah behind me. I will look towards my right, I will see my ummah. I will look towards my left, I will see my ummah. A Sahabi asked, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how will you recognize your ummah when all the other ummahs will also be there? فِيمَا بَيْنَ نُوحٍ إِلَىٰ أُمَّتِكَ. From Nuh alayhi salam till your ummah. How will you recognize? See that wording there, that I will look. And that first wording of this narration, وَدِدْتُ أَنَّا قَدْ رَأَيْنَا. How I desire that I can see my ummati. How I desire that I can see my ummati. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam will look. The Sahabi said, how will you pick them up? Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam then gave the answer which is mentioned in both narrations. Hum ghurrun muhajjalun min athari al-wuzu. Laysa ahadun kadhalika ghayruhum. Because of the traces of the wuzu, they will be shining bright. There will be no one who will be able to match them. In this narration he said, have you ever seen that there is a horse that has a certain bright spot on it? And that horse is one in a million. All the other horses are black. When the man goes out looking for his horse, will he not see his horse? Sahaba radiallahu anh said, he will definitely see his horse. He said, similarly, my ummah will be like that. Meaning there will be many people. We might think that the ummah is so big. So where will I stand out? Just remember when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned from every 999 in the fire and then one in paradise. So let's just say that one individual is standing, because this is still when the shafa'at for qiyamah to start has still not yet made. So everyone is standing on those plains worried. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam lifts up his head. At the time when he lifts up his head, how he says, how I desire, I want to pick up my ummah. So there will be certain places where the whole ummah will be there. That's your ummah. And there will be certain places where there will be one person and he'll be surrounded by black. But that one person will be shining. And normally how that person looks for his horse. And he gets so happy when he sees his horse. The way Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned it here, it's the same like. He says, I will pick up that ummati. And either it will be a smile or it will be a hand that, what are you doing here? Come out. That amount of honor. Because not my ummati will wish he can see me. He said, وَدِدْتُ أَنَّا قَدْ رَأَيْنَا إِخْوَانَنَا. I'm just waiting to be able to see my brothers. So if you are at the airport and you know your brother after many years is coming and you don't know really how he looks, then as one person is walking out, everyone is saying, is that him? Is that him? And then there is one sign that you were told to look out for. As soon as you see the sign, you'll see that whole group run. And they grab him. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he said, how I'm desirous to be able to see my brother. And then he said, and I'll pick him up like that one bright horse when everything else is black. A lot of honor. Wuzu will give a person a lot of honor. So when we make that wuzu and we sit, may Allah make it that we can also see that sins falling. And it makes us happy. That I know from the last half an hour, I wasn't the cleanest. At least now while walking into the salah, I'm clean. As you're walking, think of this, that Allah, how you gave me a satir. What a satir you gave me. It covers my sins. Even the angels respect me. Even the doors of Jannah open. Everything. That will spur that person, that when my sins have been concealed, I don't want it to be opened up. He will then start with this year, whenever my wuzu breaks, as quick as possible, even if it has to be a short wuzu. And he will then come to the level that there will be certain times where he can't find wuzu immediately. But the water is just around the corner, just around. At that moment also for him to wait for that 10 minutes will also be hard. And then he will do what Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, he'll make tayammum, even though water is not far away. Just because I could not wait for another 10 minutes until the time for the wuzu came. Now I'll make that wuzu and later on I will make the tayammum. Later on I will make a proper wuzu. Why? Because to at least be on some purity, not only it's an honor for me, it's my satir. It's my izzat. It is protecting me from becoming zalil. Al-wudu, al-wada'a, this makes me shine. Take away the wuzu, and even the angels stop making dua for the individual. Allah Tabarak Ta'ala bless us all. The azmat of this wuzu. At the beginning we mentioned Shah Waliullah Rahimullah said, 3 groups of people in wuzu. One is those who have had a chance to meet Al-Mala'ul A'la. Their nature is they can't be without being pure. He says for them we don't have to talk. Second group is those who saw the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They knew that this is the truth. They looked at it again and again and it settled in their heart that there is no amal and no honor like the amal of wuzu. This is my shield. He said, and the third group is the one who just makes wuzu because he understands without it I can't perform salah. He says he will also see the benefits in the year after. But he is like that person who was pulled to Jannah in chains. That although he never wanted to go, the wuzu just pulled him into it. He said in this world he will not find that fawaid and benefit which will be given to a person who has this azmat for wuzu and he makes it in that manner. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.